So hi, Anne. How are you today?
I'm very good, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for checking in with me here today. And I'm so glad that we connected. Now, you were asking me, how did we connect? And the way it
Yes.
worked is um, I think we're part of the same Twitter feed. And that's how I found you, through Twitter. There was several posts around HR issues, and I believe the hashtag HR Tribe or Next Chat might have been one of the
Okay.
others. Um,
Yeah, because I Google HR tech a lot, so it's probably had HR tech in it as well.
Yes, yep. Hashtag HR Tech. We often put on our posts as well. So I was so happy to see someone focus 100% on gamification, and the fact that you have Gamification Nation right next to your smiley face there on Twitter. That was something that drew my attention. And
Awesome.
yeah, this year for 2018, my focus is 100% on HR and technology and
Mhm.
how we can leverage that so that we can have a better employee experience through my full-time work, but also on my side ventures. I'm really looking at how can HR work with technology and how can technology work with HR. So um,
Yes.
when I looked at your website, I was pleasantly surprised to see. No, I shouldn't have been surprised because, of course, you were holding your award there, and
Yes.
it showed, it demonstrated to me that you really knew your stuff, and definitely your comments said the same. So, as I read through the information on your website, I just thought, oh wow, like this is like the perfect person for me right now. And isn't that funny how that worked out?
It is, it is. And I mean, it's great to connect with people from all over the place because I'm always interested. How do people find you and how do you come across? Because it's often hard to tell because you do your best online to push a message out and to say what you think is going to resonate with people. So it's great to connect with people where it resonates. So that's really cool.
It's great. It's great. And so I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your background, and because for me, whenever I'm working with someone or speaking with someone about these subjects, I always need to know the backstory. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about how you arrived at holding that wonderful award, and maybe you could end and tell us what that, or begin, however you like, about that award and gamification.
Yes. So Gamification Nation is my company, but before ever doing gamification or starting Gamification Nation, there is backstory. So as a child, I wanted to be a game designer. And my parents said, my dad was a teacher who became a journalist, and my mom a graphic designer. They said, no, no, there's no money in games. You should get a real job. So I got a real job. I studied marketing and then ended up being a consultant, but used games and a lot of game techniques to get people from where they were to where they needed to be. So I actually practiced gamification before that became a thing or a word or an industry. So for me, when I came across the word in about 2007, I said, do you know what? I've been doing that for since ever. My career started like that. So I always worked in change management or training or coaching. So any of those hats, both internally inside organizations as the external consultant coming in. So I saw the full 360 and I said, you know, gamification actually provides such a cool and fun way to keep people motivated along a path, as long as you can draw out the path and make up scenarios and make up stories that I suppose relate to people, then you can motivate people to keep them engaged for the long run. So when I came across the term in 2007, I went looking around, and at the time I was an L&D manager for a large financial company, and I was totally unhappy. It was a very bad fit, company values and personal values. So I knew I needed to make a change. And then I said, you know what? I've been hearing about this word. I'm going to deep dive into everything there is to learn. So I learned from all the great names in gamification. So at the time, it was Gabe Zickerman, Mario Herger, Yukai Chao, and read any book, took any course there was. And even at that point, there were no university courses or anything like that. So whatever I could get my hands on, I consumed, and I started blogging about it. So I started sharing articles, started writing, and I've been writing 3 times a week for the last 5 years, I believe, on the topic of gamification and how it applies to different business situations, how it applies to different things. And in 2012, I bit the bullet and said, right, this is what I'm going to do, put it out there, and actually won a first project. And the first project was training related because my background is from the training area. So we were looking at leadership development for lawyers in legal practices on how they have to take their CPD points, so their continuous professional development points, but they all tend to sort of back push that to the last minute. Mm-hmm. So in order to front push it, we said, what can we do to make it more interesting to do it early? And gamification did help with that. So it was about rewarding them for doing something that was really of interest and to have them earn points that were of value to them rather than, let's, book on the cheapest, easiest, no time consuming course I can think of and get my CPD tick for next year. So that was the first project. And ever since since starting, we've done about 60 odd projects. Wow. And all around HR learning and the odd one in customer engagement. And then this year 2017, at the Gamification Europe, I was awarded the Outstanding Gamification Agency Award, which is the little trophy you saw for all the work we've done. And that was judged by peers, so all the others in the industry. So I was really, really happy and delighted to get that, because I have to say, delivering that many projects over a short space of time is a tough call. We're a small company. We play big, but we're a small company. So,
wow, I just, hearing that story is so inspiring. I love hearing that stuff because it just, you can walk through your life but you also speak the truth about, the level of effort involved over time with 60 work projects. You don't get that award without hard work, and that's definitely something that's worth mentioning. Sometimes in social media we think, oh, click a switch and boom, it's done. But there's a lot.
I wish. I'd like that switch. Yeah, I like that switch.
So, and you mentioned that you write a blog 3 times a week, or at least you write 3 times a week, and
yes.
That's my takeaway today as far as motivating me to. I'm making a little note here to remind myself. If you can do 3 times a week blogging, then I certainly can squeeze that in somewhere, right?
Yes.
And there's more than enough to share and say, so there's no lack of interesting topics. So, yeah, yes. I'll take that away for sure.
Absolutely. And also when I started writing, when I started sharing on social media, I shared other people's articles first so that I was reading and gaining knowledge at the same time as saying, you know what, I have something to contribute, but listen, these guys know better than I do at the moment. So,
right.
And then you build it up over time. And I had a teamed blog up until, I think I changed it last year somewhere, at the beginning of the year, where every Monday was a game mechanic, every Wednesday was something you love, and every Friday was my opinion on something. So I then changed it. I like making a difference to keep it fresh as well. So
yeah, I love making a difference. So that to me is how you humanize technology and social media and all the things we do. Is making it count, and making it meaningful. Yeah. And working in retention, I know that for employee experience and engagement and all those things, people are people after all. And
exactly.
You need to remember that people really need to feel like whatever they're doing means something, even if it's a small thing. For example, last week I asked a team of students to help me assemble a welcome kit that we had never done before. And at the end, when we were finally putting the little buttons into the envelopes, I stopped and I said, listen, I hope you realize that what you're doing here has never been done before, and that
Yes.
you're assembling some kits that will go in the hands of new employees that have never been in our building before, and
Yeah.
you really are doing meaningful work. And you could just see the difference in their faces.
Yeah,
That,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's why I do what I do. I like to see the end result. So where possible, we try and see, can we at least have a demo with someone that's target audience, which actually happened on a project we did for the Navy in the UK. So we had to do we designed a gamified learning project, and we had one of the guys who had given us advice and input, because this is how gamification works best, is you need to get the input from the end user target audience, so but also from people in the know that have been there. So from the learning perspective, we interviewed former submariners, and then we also interviewed new graduates who were their target audience to attract them to go into the Navy. And what was super cool when we did the demo is that some of the retired Navy guys came in and played with the learning. And I remember one guy who was very critical and was very dubious about, would this work for us? And he said afterwards, very short, this is good. I didn't expect to enjoy this, but I did. And I thought, yes, big win.
I love
Which
it when
was
that
fun.
happens.
Yes,
It's,
exactly.
it's changing the way we operate and how we do business, and changing mindsets, which is really a huge piece,
Exactly.
right? Uh,
Yes.
so I wanted to get into how did you use gamification to engage employees so that it is really making a difference. And I know you touched on that a few of the stories you just shared. But really, when I read your website, I thought, oh, that is the nugget I need to learn from her. And perhaps you would be willing to share your
Yes.
secret sauce.
Oh, I'll lift the lid a little bit. So I suppose the key to making technology work to retain or to engage people is to ask the people what they actually want to know or want to hear and want to be recognized for, because this is the funny part. Most organizations know that their people matter in technical terms. But when it comes to practicalities, it's left down to a local manager, a line manager at best, who, if they're great with people, you'll get fantastic, very happy, engaged employees. If they're not so good with people, you could have a serious mix of emotions going on. If you then add in the current climate in the world of business is where everything changes pretty much on a constant basis, there's lots of room for exploring of, oh, do I still fit in? Can I still contribute? Do people respect me here? So I always look at, okay, how do people feel when we ask them how they feel? And then what makes it important to be recognized, or what makes them feel recognized, rewarded? And actually, the real secret is it's usually human contact. It's not a machine. And, as much as I love games, the games should be the prompters. So the game mechanics are the prompters to the manager. Hey, how many people have you spotted doing the right thing today?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the kind of gamification that works. And very short-term quests also work. So, for example, we did one for an IT company where onboarding was an issue. And we had a traffic light system for the managers before they were hiring the new employees. So we had basically, you needed to recruit someone, that was red light zone, and you had to undertake a few steps to get into the amber zone, and then another few steps to get everything ready for your new employee to feel welcome. That were basic things like including, a welcome note letter to say, you've been accepted in the role, making sure they had login codes, that they had a computer, a seat. I mean, it sounds very basic, but it often happens in companies. Somebody new shows up and nothing's ready. And guess what? First impressions do count. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's something that often managers, when you don't hire frequently, just tend to forget, and HR does remind them, but HR can't fix it all of the time or not everything. And, because they usually are small teams looking after a vast group of people. So, so the technology there can help. So that's where we look at, where are the meaningful touch points in the relationship between your organization and the employees? Mm-hmm. How do the employees feel about the interaction, about how you appraise them, how you motivate them, how you teach them things? And then we look at, okay, how could we add gamification in meaningful places to see that we encourage it forwards to where you want it to be. So yeah, it varies for every client, I have to say. So we try because I do believe that motivation is culture dependent, not just culture as in nation, but also culture in terms of organization. Yeah. So, for example, an organization here in the UK, Virgin, is very much attached to the Richard Branson profile. So any gamification you do there could be very adventurous. Mm-hmm. But for example, a government service, you wouldn't do that with. You would be a lot more structured, maybe more collaborative, because the competition element or the adventure element may not be the thing that they support as an organization. Mm-hmm. So you want it to fit with the people there, but also with the culture of the organization. And then culturally, it needs to fit as well, because I travel a lot. And in Asia, for example, everything needs to be on mobile, needs to be accessible, and needs to be very game-like. Whereas if I do that in Europe, and I would hazard a guess North America as well, we'd get pushback. So it's allowed, but it needs to be LinkedIn type gamification as opposed to an all-out, let's say, Mario Kart war or whatever, which they will do in Asia.
Yeah.
So
and perhaps eventually North America, but Asia has always been ahead in terms of adoption in that way. And that's where our cell phones come from, and that's where all of the cool anime and different things like that. Definitely not an area that I'm really in touch with, but I am aware of it.
Yes, I mean, in my travels, I think it was Singapore I was in. I nearly got knocked out by an old lady playing Pokemon Go. I mean, in Europe, you got knocked out by kids, but not by an old lady. I mean, this was my granny's age, so I was like, wow. She was running after a Pokemon with her iPad, and I was like, this is hilarious. It's just too funny.
Wow. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's, hearing those stories and hearing how people are so different in the world, but at the same time, we're all kind of the same, aren't we? I mean, she's having a great time with the game, and she's totally engaged.
Yes, absolutely.
She's not going to let that Pokemon go.
No, she was after it. If you were in her way, that was your problem. It was funny. But it's the one and only time where I said, you know what, age doesn't matter over there. Which is funny, because I suppose that's the other thing that a lot of people always say, gamification is for the millennials. And actually, I would contest that strongly, because the millennials and Generation Z, the younger ones that are coming up into the workplace now, actually, they consider it business as usual. For them, that's not new. Mm-hmm. They have that expectation already because all of their apps are gamified.
Right.
Whereas Generation X and the baby boomers, who are also still in the workplace, for them it's new. And for them it's exciting, because what we also notice is that in some organization, it's the older manager who checks in a lot more, because for them it's new and they want to do a great job so they can relate with their young ones. So which is an interesting concept. So I always say, don't be prejudiced about, who is it for, because all people play.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, and I believe that too. I suspected it, so it's just so wonderful to hear you say that. And I just want to touch on one thing that you did say in your answer there around the human aspect, and how even if you have all the things lined up and you think you're doing really well as an organization and engaging your employees, the bottom line is it's the human aspect, human connection. Yeah, I totally believe that as well. And I love how you kind of parallel the work that you can do in gamification nicely with, okay, you still need to bring in that human aspect. However,
Yep.
If we're working on the human aspect, and you know, there's many managers that are hired on, and they're known for their technical skills, but not their,
Yep.
we call them core skills in HR or soft skills. People
Yep.
mention soft skills, and so I think that the gamification would help the folks that really don't have those skills, and they just need to have a little bit of a crutch to lean on.
Exactly.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just that, you know, we need to have options for these people who are doing great work in technology, but they need to have support. And if it's gamified, I imagine it's going to be that much easier for them to follow along and want to follow along, which is also important. You need to have the supervisors and managers engaged, not just the
Yes.
employees. Probably more important, the supervisors and managers, in my opinion, right now.
Yes.
Because,
Yes. And actually, I can definitely concur with you there. I mean, actually, it works both ways. So the people that need the people skills and need prompting, for them, gamification works, because the general thing is that they're a bit shy or they're a bit unsure. So by prompting them to do the right things, they'll be able to become better at what they're supposed to be doing. And often they'll find out a relief so that they have a safety network, it's there. But for the people that are really great at the people skills, they often have productivity issues. So they have the flip side of the coin. So we can help them again with gamified solutions and saying, oh, hold on a second, back time. You know, have you done that? And they'll talk about the awards that they won because of doing the work that they're supposed to be doing as well. So you can make it work in your favor, both sides, but the people is the key, and management is crucial. I mean, we worked with one company where the management was totally behind everything that we had suggested. It was actually a non-digital gamification project for sales teams. And the management was, their job was to spot people doing the right things. And every time they spotted somebody doing the right things, which we had structured in such a way that the person, when they had done something right, had to go and write it physically on a whiteboard, their own personal whiteboard. So they were self-accountable, write down the appointments you made, the interviews you set up. It was in the recruitment space. So, and then as soon as they got up and wrote something down, the manager would make noise. We had rattlers and tooters and bells and God knows what, anything that made noise. And it was their job to reinforce the good. And actually that quadrupled turnover over the space of 6 months, just reinforcing behaviors. We had a training program to fit with it, but you know, at the same time, if the managers hadn't reinforced the gamified solution, it would have just totally collapsed.
Right. And as you know, in change management, the last step is reinforcement. So
absolutely,
if you don't have that piece to close the circle, it's not going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, any system is only as good as its users. So especially in gamification, if we're going to go apps and technology, etc., technology is great, but technology is not a person.
Can we end on that note?
Yes.
I think that's a great way to end things today. And I'm mindful of our time. I know you have a flight you have to catch. And yes. I think that if we can focus on the person,
yes,
we'll do some amazing things. Thank you so much for your time. And
you're very welcome.
I'm looking forward to talking with you again. I think we just scratched the surface.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to talk anytime.
Thank you so much. Bye, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.